My hands trembled with the shock of discovering the limp bodies of my prized angelfish floating lifelessly at the surface of the aquarium. This large tank, nestled in the sunlit corner of our living room, was more than just glass and water to me. It was a tranquil world I had painstakingly cultivated. As the dim morning light spilled across the shards of glass littering the floor, a sinister truth began to unveil itself. In my dedicated care, death was an infrequent visitor, making the scene before me particularly alarming. Something catastrophic had happened. I knelt closer, my eyes narrowing at a significant crack splitting the once immaculate front panel of the tank. The crack was jagged, violent, a clear sign of force. My mind raced with confusion and mounting fury. Who could have done such a thing? The sound of the front door closing snapped me out of my thoughts. It was Claire, my wife, returning from her morning jog. She entered the room, her face flushed from the exercise, eyes wide as she noticed the mess. "What happened here, Mark?" she gasped, her voice a mix of concern and bewilderment. I stood up slowly, pointing at the damaged aquarium. "Seems like someone pushed the tank. Did you have guests over last night while I was at my brother's?" Her gaze faltered, a flicker of guilt, or was it fear, crossing her features. "No, of course not. It must have been an accident. Maybe the table gave way," she stammered, avoiding my eyes. But I wasn't convinced. The table was as sturdy as ever, and the position of the crack suggested a deliberate shove. As I began cleaning up the mess, my mind churned with suspicion. It wasn't until later, as I was moving the sofa to retrieve a fallen fishnet, that I discovered the earring. It wasn't Claire's. My heart sank. The following days were a blur of quiet observation and inner turmoil. I needed proof, undeniable evidence of what my gut was already telling me. It came unexpectedly one evening when Claire believed I was working late. I returned home early, my decision to confront her solidifying with each step closer to the house. The muffled sounds of laughter and conversation drifted from the back patio. Creeping silently, I peered around the corner to see Claire and a man I recognized as her gym trainer, Daniel, their bodies entwined in a clumsy dance of what looked like joy. The shock of it rooted me to the spot. As they stumbled against the patio table, laughing, the pieces fell into place. They had been the ones. In their reckless abandon, they had pushed against the aquarium that night. The betrayal sliced through me sharper than the glass that had killed my fish. But I would not confront them, not yet. I pulled out my phone, my hand steady as I recorded their indiscretion. This video would be the key to my retribution. As I retreated to the shadows, a plan began to form. They had destroyed a piece of my world, and in return, I would dismantle theirs. This was just the beginning, and the aquarium, my silent, shattered witness, had set the stage for their undoing. I would ensure that justice for my golden babies was cold and calculated. The night was long, and my resolve only hardened. I couldn't shake the image of Claire and Daniel, laughing carelessly as they desecrated what they thought was merely a piece of furniture. My aquarium was more than that, it was a sanctuary for my cherished aquatic life. That night, as I lay in bed, the strategy for their downfall took shape in my mind like a dark cloud ready to burst. The following morning, I acted as if nothing had happened. Over breakfast, I watched Claire making coffee, her movements hesitant, probably sensing the shift in the atmosphere. "Mark, are you sure you're okay?" "You seem off," she said, her voice laced with a faint concern that now sounded hollow to my ears. I forced a smile, keeping my cards close to my chest. "Just tired, I guess. Didn't sleep well." She nodded, looking relieved to accept any excuse that didn't involve her betrayal. As she left for the gym, no doubt another rendezvous with Daniel, I got to work. First, I contacted a friend who specialized in security systems. "Tom, I need the best surveillance setup you've got." "It's for a personal project," I explained. Tom, sensing the urgency in my voice, promised to have everything installed by the time I returned from work. True to his word, when I arrived home, my house had transformed into a fortress of hidden eyes and ears. Nothing would escape my notice now. That evening, as we sat watching TV, my phone vibrated silently. It was an alert from the new system, movement in the garage. Excusing myself with a mention of checking on a supposed leak, I stepped out, my phone in hand, live streaming the footage. There, in the dim light of the garage, Claire and Daniel were clumsily navigating through boxes as they sought a secluded corner. Their whispers were crystal clear through the high-definition audio pickup. "This is crazy, Claire. If Mark finds out." "He won't." "He's clueless, trust me," Claire interrupted, her voice a mixture of excitement and reassurance. "I recorded every deceitful word, every illicit touch." The evidence was mounting, and so was my fury. But I knew better than to act in the heat of the moment. This was about strategy, about ensuring they could not wiggle their way out of their upcoming desolation. As I returned inside, I found Claire looking slightly flustered but trying to keep her composure. "Everything all right?" she asked, a nervous flicker in her eyes. "Just a spider." "Took care of it," I lied smoothly, my facade as intact as the calm before a storm. Later that night, I lay in bed, planning. I needed more than just videos and photos. I wanted them to feel the weight of their actions, to suffer not just a breakup but a total and public humiliation. The next part of my plan involved Daniel's wife, Linda, whom I knew socially but not well. A meeting under the guise of mutual business interests would serve as the perfect cover to bring her into my confidence. I drafted an email to Linda, my fingers steady but my heart racing with a cocktail of anticipation and wrath. "Linda, I have some investment opportunities I'd like to discuss with you. Could we meet for coffee this week? I believe it could be beneficial for both of us." The send button was a gateway to the next phase of my revenge. As the digital message zoomed through the ether, I felt the first drop of the storm I was conjuring. Claire and Daniel had no idea of the deluge that was about to sweep their lives into chaos. The coffee shop was bustling with the usual morning rush, a perfect backdrop for the delicate dance of deception and revelation I was about to lead. I spotted Linda as she entered, her face etched with curiosity and a touch of caution. I waved her over, and she approached with a reserved smile. "Mark, it's good to see you. I'm intrigued about this opportunity you mentioned," she said, settling into the chair across from me. I nodded, a rehearsed solemnity in my gaze. "Thanks for meeting me, Linda. Before we get to that, there's something personal I need to discuss. It involves our spouses." Her expression tightened, a flicker of apprehension passing through her eyes. "What about them?" Taking a deep breath, I leaned forward, my voice low. "I believe Claire and Daniel are having an affair. I have evidence." "I thought you should know." The color drained from her face as the words hung in the air like a dark cloud. For a moment, she seemed to fold inward, her world tilting on its axis. "This can't be." Daniel wouldn't, her voice trailed off, disbelief and pain warring for dominance. "I'm sorry, Linda. I wouldn't bring this up without being certain. I can show you the evidence if you want." She nodded slowly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Yes, I need to see." I slid my phone across the table, tapping into the gallery where I had stored the conclusive proof of their betrayal. As she scrolled through the videos and photos, her face hardened, the initial shock giving way to a cold fury. "What do you plan to do?" she asked, her voice steady but her hands trembling slightly. "I plan to expose them, make sure they can't just walk away from this unscathed." "I thought maybe you'd want to be involved, help plan their comeuppance." A slow, decisive nod was her answer. "I'm in. They need to learn the consequences of their actions." Together, we plotted. It would be a two-pronged approach, a public revelation to shame them and a series of orchestrated encounters to maximize their discomfort and disrupt their lives. The first step was to send anonymous tips to both their workplaces about inappropriate relationships, ensuring the rumors started circulating. Next, we would confront them together at a party hosted by mutual friends where they wouldn't expect us to collaborate. The public setting would amplify the impact, leaving them no room to maneuver. As we parted ways, a plan robust and ready, I felt a grim satisfaction mixed with a lingering sadness. This wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about justice, about restoring some semblance of order to our shattered lives. That evening, as I prepared for the confrontation, I rehearsed what I would say, each word sharpened like a blade. This was more than just a personal vendetta, it was a declaration of war against betrayal. The night of the party arrived, and the air was thick with anticipation. Linda and I entered together, our alliance hidden beneath courteous smiles and casual greetings. Claire and Daniel were already there, laughing and oblivious to the storm about to break over them. As we approached, I felt every muscle tense, ready for the fallout. "Claire, Daniel, can we have a word?" I called out, my voice calm but firm. Their laughter died as they turned, their expression shifting from amusement to confusion, then to dread as they spotted Linda by my side. "What's this about?" Daniel asked, a nervous twitch betraying his facade. I glanced at Linda, giving her a nod before turning back to them. "It's about truth and consequences," I said, pulling out my phone. "It's about the end of your deceit." As the evidence played out for all to see, the room fell into a stunned silence, the reality of their actions laid bare. The betrayal was no longer a private pain, it was a public spectacle, their shame the evening's main attraction. Their lives, like the cracked aquarium, were now exposed, the fissures irreparable. As I watched their faces contort with realization and remorse, I knew this was just the beginning of their retribution. The storm had just begun to unleash its fury. The air was thick with tension as the party dissolved into chaos. Whispers fluttered through the room like disturbed moths, each guest absorbing the spectacle of Claire and Daniel's disgrace. Their faces, once flushed with laughter, now bore the pallor of shock and humiliation. I watched, my heart a mix of vindication and hollow victory, as Linda and I stood united in our silent pact of retribution. Claire tried to approach me, her eyes pleading. "Mark, I can explain." "There's nothing to explain," I cut her off sharply, my voice cold and distant. "You've done enough." Daniel, meanwhile, faced Linda's wrath. "Linda, please, let's talk about this in private," he begged, his voice quivering. Linda's response was a cold laugh. "In private? Like your affair?" "No, Daniel, you've humiliated me publicly, and now you face the consequences the same way." The crowd's eyes were on us, the air ripe with judgment and whispered speculations. It was time to escalate their downfall. I took out my phone again, this time dialing the number of the local news outlet I had previously alerted about a potential scandal in our small town. "It's time," I said into the phone, loud enough for the silence around us to absorb each word. The news would broadcast their affair, their faces becoming synonymous with betrayal. As the reality of their situation sank in, Claire's posture slumped, defeated. Daniel's eyes darted around desperately, looking for any ally, finding none. "We're not done yet," I said, turning to face them again. I had one last card to play, one final blow that would ensure they could never rebuild their lives here. "I've also informed your employers. Enjoy job hunting." Claire gasped, her hands trembling. "You destroyed us, Mark." "You destroyed yourself," I retorted, feeling a pang of sadness for the love we once shared, now tainted by her betrayal. The final act of my revenge took place later that week. I had arranged for billboards around town, previously showcasing local businesses, to now display quotes about honesty and loyalty with subtle hints pointing to Claire and Daniel. It was a constant reminder of their infidelity, a social exile that was both insidious and all-encompassing. As the days turned into weeks, I watched from a distance as they both unraveled. Claire moved out, unable to withstand the weight of public shame and my cold indifference. Daniel's marriage dissolved just as quickly, and he left town in search of a fresh start that would likely elude him. One evening, as I sat alone in the now quiet house, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a small, sealed envelope on the doorstep. No return address, just my name in Claire's familiar handwriting. Inside, a simple note. "Mark, you've won. I'm leaving town for good. You'll never see me again. I'm sorry for everything. Claire." As I read the note, the sweet sharpness of my revenge began to dissolve, replaced by a somber reflection on all that had been lost. My aquarium, once a symbol of tranquility, stood repaired in the corner, but its beauty felt haunting now, a reminder of the price of vengeance. The story of our love and subsequent betrayal had come to a close, marked not by fond memories but by a ruthless campaign of revenge. As the town slowly moved on from the scandal, I found myself looking at the repaired aquarium, contemplating the solitude of my victory. My golden fish, restored to their home, swam silently, their world undisturbed by the storms that had raged outside. In the end, I had avenged their demise, but at what cost? My heart, much like the cracked glass, bore fissures that might never fully heal. The final chapter of our story was written in the shadows of retribution, a testament to the destructiveness of betrayal and the hollow triumph of revenge.